G'day and welcome to this Wickets and Prickets preview of the Ashes. I'm joined today by Declan Hooper from Wickets and Prickets. My name is Phil Dillon, and it's finally here. We are ready to go. We are the night before the Ashes. It's like Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. Let's fire off, Declan. What do you reckon? At the Gabba tomorrow, the Gabatoir. Looking forward to it.
Oh, mate, I've been.
It's a stupid question.
Mate, it feels like it's been so long coming, and I mean it's always the case with the Ashes, right? The talk happens 6 months before 12 months before the Ashes even kicks off, but it just feels like it's just slowly starting to heat up, and I suppose even with the quarantine and all that kind of thing, you actually it doesn't seem like you were hearing that much. And then this last kind of week, it's just all flicked into gear. I'm really looking forward to it now.
I reckon because of all that's happened or what hasn't happened, let's say, on the field over the last year and a half, whatever, especially as far as Australia is concerned, this is probably one of the most anticipated Ashes series for the last 10 or 15 years. Not necessarily because of the standard of the cricket we're going to expect, but because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think that's why the anticipation. I think it's why. I think generally you can get a decent gauge of how teams going into Ashes series, but I think with this one, I mean, you've really got not much to work on as far as Australia goes. I think we can gather a decent idea of how England will come into this series, but I mean, you could toss a coin for Australia, really. I mean, they're at home, so the expectations there, but we just really don't know, do we?
I mean, I reckon, we've touched on this before, but 3 or 4 months ago, before Ben Stokes made his decision to come back to cricket, then everybody would have nailed on a big Australian win. But everything that's happened since Ben Stokes has come back into the fold, it's all sort of not swinging England's way, but it's England have come back in as not so clear underdogs now. I think it's sort of evening itself out with everything that's gone on off the field.
Well, I think that's all. I suppose it's a mindset thing. It's how you frame it, really, because I think if you spoke to any of the Australian players, I don't think it would make a blind bit of difference to them. And I think looking at it from an English perspective, while I think Ben Stokes coming back is massive, and there's no denying that, I think the form is the form, and you can actually read a lot more into the English form than you can the Australian form. So this is why it becomes such an unknown, I suppose.
And there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more expectation for English fans now. That, I mean, obviously one player can't win a series on his own. Maybe he can, because Steve Smith did it in 2019 almost. He sort of like he was the mainstay there. But look, Ben Stokes is a massive in for England. There's no doubt about that. But look, I reckon the crux of the Ashes revolves around Warner, Labuschagne and Smith for Australia, and Root, Stokes, and maybe Josh Buttler getting runs down the order. As far as England is concerned, I think the two bowling attacks are pretty similar. Obviously, the Australian one is a lot more. It's a lot more vaunted, but I think England, Ollie Robinson will surprise a few people in Australia if they haven't seen him before. I think possibly.
Well, okay. Let's go through I suppose what we think the 11 is going to be for this first test at the Gabba. I think Australia have pretty much announced their first 11 3 or 4 days before the test, which I think, to be honest with you, it's not the worst idea. I think because I think it stops all media speculation. I think there's no surprise packages with Australia. I quite like the way they've gone out and done that, and not left it to the day or the day before to announce the 11. So, I mean, from the top, Australia pretty well unchanged with, Harris and Warner at the top, Marnus at 3, Smith at 4. Then you've got Travis Head, Cameron Green, Alex Carey making his debut, and then you've got the bowling tag that doesn't really change with Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins, and Lyon. What do you make of that, first of all?
As you say, no real surprises. My own personal thing would have been to go with Usman Khawaja on his home track. And considering he's had a pretty decent start to the Shield season, bit more experience than Travis Head, played in the Ashes before, but maybe there's a little bit of history between him and Justin Langer, so maybe that's why he didn't get the nod. Look, I can see why they've gone for Travis Head. He is the incumbent, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think Alex Carey coming into the team actually it made the decision to keep Cameron Green in probably slightly easier, because then you've got that bowling option, and you've gained essentially a batter rather than Tim Payne, who's essentially a wicket keeper first, batsman second. So I think if Australia are pretty happy with that. I think on the Khawaja thing, I think it's going to be a long tour. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they'll interchange out courses for courses depending on the track moving forward. So I'm sure we'll see Usman Khawaja at some point this series. I think Harris is the other one that probably who's got a few question marks under his name, but I think as an Australian fan, I think I'm pretty happy with that going into the first test. Now, moving on to the England team, do you want to talk us through what you made of, first of all, of Jimmy Anderson being up for the opener?
Yeah, look, I'm just reading the quotes from Josh Butler on the BBC website, and he's saying that Jimmy's not injured, that he's being rested and managed by the Chris Elwood and the coaching side, which I just find that a little bit perplexing to me, to be honest with you. I mean, this is probably his last Ashes tour. He's still England's best bowler by a fair way, I reckon. He got something like 24 wickets or 26 wickets in the last tour here. There was talk that he'd injured his calf, which makes more sense if he's done that, and then I can understand that they're not going to take a risk, because they exactly what happened in the series in England. He only played 2 days. It's a strange. It seems like a strange decision to rest him, but at the same time, I can almost, if he is slightly injured, then I can see why they've done it.
I also think looking at the conditions, it looked like the conditions don't look great for the next few days, and I wonder whether they are looking at the conditions and going, is it worth risking him if he is this little bit injured? Worth risking him on conditions that I don't think necessarily suit him as well as some of the other conditions that he will come up against in Australia. In a test that I think there's going to be quite a lot of rain around for the next at least 3 days.
If it's going to be cloudy and overcast, you'd want Jimmy Anderson in your side, wouldn't you? But then again, they say the Kookaburra ball doesn't swing. So I mean, I said, look, I suppose you can toss it up in the air and say, we'll go with that. It would be interesting to see how they do end up with the rest of the bowlers, whether they pick Stuart Broad or Jack Leach, which seems to be the way they're going at the moment. It's one of those two that's not going to play on Wednesday morning. So
I think that'd be crazy not to start with Stuart Broad. I think looking at the Australian lineup, 5 of the top 7 are all left-handers. I think Stuart Broad around the wicket can pose a few problems, especially early on, and with the conditions, as we said. So, in my opinion, I think that, look, you could go for Jack Leach. He's done all right. Did all right in India, done okay, but I'm still not totally convinced by him. And I think that
no, not right. I personally think that if the thing is that what they've got to factor in is how many overs can they get out of Ben Stokes. Now, if they think he's underdone and they're only going to get a handful of overs out of him, then he can't just play 3 seamers.
Yeah,
because that means they're going to be totally knackered by the end of the thing, and then you'd have to rest one. So you can't play 3 seamers, Jack Leach and Ben Stokes if Ben Stokes is only going to bowl, let's say 15 overs in the game. That cannot happen. Personally, I think that Joe Root has become a better spinner down the years, so you could use him as your spin option. So therefore, you could go with an extra bowler. A lot of people would say that you need a spinner in like a genuine spinner in the side, but I think if David Warner gets in and he comes up against Jack Leach, he'll love the ball coming into him. So I'm not sure whether that's a good matchup for England, to be honest with you. Maybe David Malan can bowl a few overs of leg spin as well. He's not averse to that, and he's done that before.
But this is probably not ideal coming into the first test of an Ashes series. Slightly different in India. But let's go through the rest of the squad and see how you think it might line up. You've got Hamid and Malan, Rory Burns as well. How do you think they're going to open with?
Well, Hamid and Rory Burns will open. David Malan will come in 3. Joe Root 4. Now it seems like they've gone with Ollie Pope ahead of Johnny Bairstow, which I find that's a bit strange considering Bairstow was in the box seat, in India, against India. Sorry, and he did pretty well in those home tests. So I'm surprised that they've gone with Pope. Maybe he's
also Bairstow scored runs in Australia before as well, which if that counts as something.
He didn't have a great T20 World Cup, but I don't suppose that really matters in the scheme of things anyway, because it's a completely different game. But it means that you've actually got bat on ball, which is a lot of Ollie Pope hasn't had that. He wouldn't have played any sort of cricket for since the 10 or whatever they call it, the 100. I wouldn't imagine so. But look, he's a good young kid. He deserves a go, I suppose. And Johnny Bairstow's had his chance. So some people say, right, okay, let's see what can happen.
Well, okay, let's I suppose go into a few predictions.
Oh no!
Well, I've got you. Well, let's first off, who do we think is going to get the most runs over the course of these next 6 weeks?
Oh well, in theory, he can't go past Steve Smith. He's been there, he's done it. He's always been a thorn in England's side since he came into the properly not a number 8 leg spin option, but when he came in as a proper batsman, he's been a thorn in their side, and they still trying to work out how to bowl to him and how to get him out. So you've got to say Steve Smith the favourite from an Australian point of view, and then Joe Root for England. I can't see anybody else getting close to either of those two, really. Maybe Marnus Labuschagne if he.
I think Marnus Labuschagne might be the one for me personally. I think there's always. Look, going back as long as we can remember, there's always one surprise performance over the course of an Ashes series, and I do wonder who that's going to be. I do think, look, Marnus, he's proven that he's a quality batter, and I think he's still quite young as well, which I mean might work for him or might work against him. We just don't know. The other one that I kind of would be interested to see. I think Ben Stokes had a tremendous Ashes series last year, and always seems to, well, he pulled it out. Obviously at Headingley. And I do wonder if the bit of time off has helped him, and he comes back. The best Ben Stokes we've seen. I mean, time will tell, but it's going to be an interesting one. Speaking of kind of surprise packages or someone that you don't expect, is there anyone that you've kind of seen in either of the squads that can maybe prove a few people wrong or surprise a few people? You mentioned Ollie Robertson before.
Yeah, I think Ollie Robinson's got a little bit about him, actually. He's shown that he's not frightened to stand up, in the banter stakes. He's already said that, quoted on a few websites earlier in the week, saying that he won't be frightened to have his say if the Aussies start chirping at him. So, I don't think he's backward in coming forward, let's say, and I think he's got a little bit to back it up as well, because he had a great series against India, got 26 wickets at 19, an average of 19, which is not bad for somebody who's, in the early stages of his career. He's got, I'm not saying he is Glenn McGrath, but he's got a little bit about Glenn McGrath about him. I think he just bowls that just short of a length, and it can get a bit. And a Gabba, that might be just perfect for him, because he can bowl that just short of a length, get a bit of bounce, and cause a few problems for Australian top order.
Yeah, I also think. Look, and we've all been the first to bag him over the course of a little while, but I think
David Warner.
I think he might just be in for an Indian summer this year. I do think he's always been a confidence player, and he's always been, he's backed himself, and he's always done that. And we saw in the T20 World Cup, and I know it's a different format, and generally you don't take form, across formats. But I do think with him, like he's a flat track bully as well. Like he loves playing at home. He doesn't, I do think that, and he loves getting stuck in, especially against the English. He could. There's all the ingredients there for him to do really well this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. There is. People say like Stuart Broad, but Stuart Broad in England, Stuart Broad in Australia, totally different kettle of fish. Stuart Broad now coming towards in the twilight of his career, not quite the same potency as he was like 2 years ago, even. And Warner's not going to have the same. He can't average 9 like he did 2019. There's no way can he be that bad again. This probably is his swan song. I can't see him going much long. I can't see him playing in like 4 years' time in the Ashes, to be honest, at home anyway. He might have another tour in England, but I can't see him playing in 4 years' time. I know he's fit. He works hard at his game, but I think there's got to come a time. Well, he certainly can't play all 3 formats anymore, I don't think, because he'll just burn himself out. So it'd be interesting to see what he does after this series, and it's very interesting to see how he's going to cope with. Because everybody's going to be on his. I mean, they're saying, he's. Some people say he's going to struggle again, but I'm with you. I personally think he's going to do all right. Sadly,
I think we both can kind of recognise that it's either going to be tremendous success or tremendous failure with him. I don't think he's going to average 30, is he? I think it's going to be one or the other with him. So time will tell.
England will be happy if he does average 30, because that means they've got him out pretty reasonably early. So they won't mind that. They won't mind that at all. So I think they'll take that. They'll take that hands down if they can get David Warner averaging 30 over the next 5 Test matches.
Just quickly, a word on the bowlers as well. Look, we've already mentioned Ollie Robertson, but anyone else you pick for taking most wickets?
Look, Mark Wood's pacey. If he bowls the right length at the Gabba, he will be a real handful. English bowlers in the past, they've tended to think because the Gabba is a bit more bouncier that they bowl short, and that's not the way to bowl at the Gabba. You need to
No.
bowl at a really good length. Peter Siddle proved it, those years ago when he got his hat trick. He wasn't quick necessarily, but he bowled
Hat trick on his birthday.
on his birthday. Yeah, I was there, mate. So I remember it well. But he showed then how to bowl at the Gabba. He bowled a fullish length, just on outside, on off stump line, blah blah blah, easy peasy, and he pick up wickets. That's why Ollie Robinson, I think, is the key for England, because he can do that. I think, but we don't. I don't think, as from an England point of view, I don't want to see the bowlers getting sucked in to bowling short because they see a little bit of bounce. That ain't going to work, especially not against David Warner. Give him a bit of width and short, he'll smack you for 4 every time.
I do think there's going to be an interesting series for Josh Hazlewood as well. Coming into it, I think he accidentally became Australia's go-to T20 bowler. I don't he's played a handful of T20 games before the T20 World Cup, and tremendously well considering in UAE, and was probably the pick of the bowlers for the last India tour, which was last year. And I think, there's a little bit of pressure under Stark, and obviously you've got Pat Cummins now, having his captaincy role. So I think he'll be looking to Hazlewood to do a lot of the heavy lifting for that Australian bowling attack, and then, relieving some of the pressure off Stark, and obviously then some of the pressure off Lyon as well.
Be interesting to see what Pat Cummins does with himself. More to the point. Will he be the sort of captain to bowl himself too much, or is he going to be the sort of captain to under bowl himself? I personally think they'll go with the latter. I'm hoping that anyway, because he's obviously the best of the bunch when it comes to that bowling attack.
And lastly, I suppose, just a quick prediction of how we think the Gabba's going to go, and then how we think the overall series is going to
go. The weather at the Gabba is going to be crucial. The first couple of days looks like it's going to be raining on and off. So when that comes in will be key. The toss at the Gabba is crucial, I think.
So looking at the weather report for tomorrow, rain from 11 o'clock in the morning, which is perfect timing, really. Yeah, and then that's for most of the afternoon, and then for the next 2 days as well. Look, unfortunately, I think this one might be the draw, and I think there'll be rain about this summer. They've already said there's going to be a wet summer. England
would absolutely take a draw out of the Gabba Test. Absolutely. Before a ball is bowled, they'll take a draw. Joe Root already said that this week. He's saying he's not being defeatist or anything like that, but they don't want to lose at the Gabba because that puts them 1-0 down. But the important thing is to have the series all level or whatever, and when they go into the Adelaide Day-Nighter, which arguably England will be favourites going into. Prediction overall, I don't know. I think the Aussies will win. I personally, they're probably 2-1, because I think the weather will have a big say this year.
I tend to agree. I seem to think it will be 2-1, 3-1. I think we're not going to. There's going to be a few draws. I think just the weather's going to have such impact, and also I think the fifth test, wherever that may be, is a real toss up as well. I think if you then go into Hobart, who knows, then puts a spanner in the works. So it will be interesting.
It's really is in the lap of the gods, I think, and that's why I think it's so interesting. It's like predicting it is. Glenn McGrath obviously said 5-0. He said, what else could I say? And yeah, so he's gone with 5-0, and what else? He wouldn't be Glenn McGrath if he didn't say 5-0. It is. Look, I'm just excited, mate. I've watched a few series down the line, and this one is the one I can't really say, what's going to happen, because we really don't know, because Australia hasn't played red ball cricket for so long.
I mean, this is it. I think all to play for, and so many question marks. But I mean, we'll be here to commentate along the way and to comment as we go. So it'll be interesting. I'll catch up with you again at the end of the day's play tomorrow, and
we'll see how our predictions went after that, shall we?